Hi guys, what's up? It's Alex here, and today we're going to be talking about this year's Formula 1 season so far. I thought I might as well do this video. I've been waiting for Grid 2, and I actually was given some opportunity to upload some Grid 2 gameplay early, but I decided against it. I decided to play it for myself before I uploaded any Grid 2, so that should hopefully be coming Friday, but I'm not too fussed about when I get the game. I should get it Friday due to Steam unlocking it at that time. But anyway, F1 2013, how's it been going so far? Well, I don't think it's been the greatest season to ever be in Formula 1, but it's certainly been a decent season. Of the 6 races we've had so far, we've had 4 different winners, which is nice to see different winners. We never like seeing one person dominate the whole time unless you're the fan of that person. Yeah, I think it has been a pretty good start to the season. Out the 6 races so far, Raikkonen won Australia, Vettel won Malaysia, Alonso won China, Vettel won Bahrain as well, then Alonso won Spain, and then Rosberg a couple of days ago won the Monaco Grand Prix. And this has sort of changed up the Drivers' Championship a little bit, because it's really changed up the top of the championship, because Raikkonen has now dropped back a lot from Sebastian Vettel after only getting 1 point in Monaco. Vettel is on 107 points, Raikkonen is on 86, and Alonso is a further 8 or so back from Raikkonen with 78 points. So at the moment we can see that Vettel is pretty much running away with it. He's got a good lead, he doesn't need to take any unneeded risks this year. He's got a pretty good lead in the championship. A lot of Vettel fans will be happy about that. But I personally want to see a really close championship go down to the wire like last year. So I'd rather see just 2 drivers close on points, or even more drivers close on points going to the final rounds, because I think that's what makes a better championship overall for many people. Hamilton's in 4th, Webber 5th, 6th, Rosberg 7th, Massa 8th. The rest, a notable performance from him, 28 points from the first 6 races is very good for him. Grosjean disappointing in 9th, 10th for Button, Sutil is on 11th, Perez is 12th, Ricciardo notable for him as well, he's 13th with 7 points, 14th is Hulkenberg, 15th Verne, he's doing well as well on 5 points. Then you've got the non-scorers, Gutierrez, Bottas, Maldonado, Bianchi, Peak, Chilton and Van der Garde is last in the championship, even though he had a great start to the season and I think he's been performing quite well. Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship on 164 points, Ferrari have 123, Lotus have 112, Mercedes have 109, and then there's a big gap down to Force India with 44, McLaren on 37, Toro Rosso on 12, Sauber on 5, Williams, Marussia and Caterham have yet not scored. So that's a brief overview of what's happened in the first 6 races and who's leading the championship and all that good stuff. Now I want to move on to the 4 main things I've written down on my notepad about what I want to talk about in this video. First off, talk about tyres, because Pirelli, this was the last race that they're going to be running on these certain tyres, because obviously they said they're going to change it for Canada, and obviously that means that the construction of the tyres should be better. They won't degrade as much, even though in Monaco we didn't really see a huge amount of degrading, but I don't think overall it's the most degrading track in the world. I think you can get around with 1 or 2 stops very easily, not like Spain when you needed, was it 3 or 4 stops to even get to the end. It's good to see Pirelli listening to the teams, but it's almost as if they're being bullied into changing the tyres after 2 teams in particular, Red Bull and Mercedes, don't really like the tyres and they're sort of struggling to perform. But I find that a bit weird, because out of the races so far, those 2 teams have won half the races, and the other 2 teams that are not complaining about it, Lotus and Ferrari, they're not complaining. So it's really a bit of a balance there. 2 teams are complaining, they've won 3 races. The other teams aren't complaining, they've won 3 races. So I don't know, it's really a bit of an interesting one for the Pirelli to make sort of a bit of a rash decision to start changing them in the middle of the season, because these tyres probably won't have a huge amount of testing, but I'll get onto that in a minute. And it's going to be a bit of an interesting one to see how these tyres perform in Canada. I'd really appreciate one of your comments down in the comment section to see what you think about this, because it's definitely a thing I'm thinking about going into Canada, is the tyres. How different are they going to be from the ones we've got at the moment? I know they're going to be more durable. Well, they're supposed to be more durable. If they're not, then they might have made another mistake. But it's going to be interesting to see. They're they haven't really had a huge amount of testing for these tyres, but it's gonna be really interesting. I'm looking forward to looking at the comments and seeing what you think, whether they should be really changing the construction of the tyres mid-season. I'm not sure. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Obviously, I don't think they've really ever done that before. They've never really changed something so drastically in the middle of the season. I'm not sure whether Pirelli have realised they've made a mistake. I personally don't think they've really made a huge mistake. I don't see why, this is just coming from me. Why can't the drivers just push and then maybe pit an extra time? But I suppose then the people that don't pit, obviously might gain more time. I don't know. It is a bit annoying that we don't have drivers racing in inverted commas. We have drivers just going around protecting their tyres. A bit of a fail there on screen when I hit the back of one of the LMP cars. But it's really a hard one. Personally, I don't think they should change the construction of the tyres, but that is just really my opinion. There are loads of people saying you should, and I'm totally fine with people saying you should because, valid arguments for and against. And yeah, but when I said they should push a bit harder in race, I know that's a very hard thing to say, especially as a spectator. Everything, you can easily say that, but it's very hard to go out there and do it, especially when a huge budget organisation like these teams are in Formula 1. It'll be interesting. It would definitely be interesting. But anyway, next thing I want to talk about is the Mercedes tyre testing. Lots of people wondering whether Mercedes will be kicked out of the Monaco Grand Prix, but that result is official now. It was official, I think it was, only a couple of hours after the race that the result was official. Rosberg did win the Monaco Grand Prix officially, so it's good for him. And Mercedes were not kicked out of that race. I don't know whether there's any further sanctions. There's still, I think, a big ongoing debate. And if you've got any updates, be sure to leave them in the comment section as well, because I'm definitely interested in reading about them. And it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because they have got sort of the Pirelli have got sort of like a permit, I think, to have 1,000 kilometers of testing. But I think the big thing that is all going around is that I don't think you're allowed to use the 2013 car. I think some people were saying that Ferrari did one of these tests. I don't think it was. Maybe it was this year. I think it was last year with the 2010 car. They were using that car to do some testing for Pirelli, and obviously that wasn't really called to action because they were using a 2010 car. The 2010 car was obviously quite a bit different to 2012's car with the step nose and everything, but it's kind of a hard one because the 2010 car now is quite similar to this year's cars, I think, because you've got not the step nose or anything, but it's a hard thing to call because over a couple of years there's been a huge amount of development, and obviously the teams will have much better cars because I think they said that they had the Toyota 2009 Formula 1 car. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they had that to test the car, and they had to put a huge amount of downforce on that car. They had to artificially make a huge amount of downforce, I think, to test these tyres. And personally, I think maybe, I know this might sound a bit stupid at this current time, but maybe they should be given last year's HRT car to do it. I don't maybe know, because that's probably the closest thing they've got. HRT obviously aren't in the sport anymore, or that's probably the most, that HRT in 2012 was probably a better car than some of the cars in 2009 were. For example, the Toyota, it was probably a better, faster car than the Toyota. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's probably the most updated machinery you've got. And as they're not in the sport anymore, it'd be very easy to maybe just buy that chassis and everything and test the cars. Now, I don't know. You can leave a comment section on, leave a comment on that. Sorry, but maybe that's just one idea I got top of my head. Or maybe they should all just be allowed to use the 2013 car, but maybe use the car at the start of the season. And I don't know. It's really a big debate, isn't it? But they did technically break some codes and rules, I guess, if they use the 2013 car. But it's a big ongoing debate, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the result. Personally, I don't want to see Mercedes penalised. I mean, I don't think they were going into it doing anything wrong. I don't think they wanted to do anything wrong, but maybe there was just a bit of miscommunication between a couple of the teams. Once again, failing, hitting one of the back of the cage rims on the screen there. That's totally my fault. Anyway, another thing I want to talk about is teams are hating on each other so much this year. Everybody's calling each other sore losers, which is kind of disappointing to see. I mean, I think Mercedes were calling Red Bull sore losers, and then vice versa. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that once again, but there are definitely some insults flying around in the Formula One paddock from team to team, and you know, that's never nice to see. These guys are £1 million, probably £1 billion organisations, and then they're using random insults over, I guess, social media. Or just interviews to try and get their point across. Once again, I hit a Caterham off the track. I'm not doing too well, am I, today? But yeah, I don't know. I found this year a lot of teams are just randomly hating on each other, calling each other sore losers. It's disappointing. It's never really that nice to see that. You can correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, if I said the wrong teams. That I think that was what it was, but it probably wasn't. Probably getting it wrong. But you know, it's interesting to see that, but I don't really want to see that in Formula 1. This is such a high-level motorsport. It is supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport, but this year, as well with GP2, we've seen some immature things being happening, especially some very stupid crashes in GP2. If I remember, I'll leave a link in the description to a video I made on GP2. It got a really good feedback as well, which is good to see. And you know, that's just talking about GP2 and the drivers being a little bit stupid. Well, some of them, let's just say. Yeah, but that's one thing. That teams are hating on each other, and well, hating, inverted commas, hating is such a, I think it's a bit of a stupid word. It doesn't really mean anything. You can hate on people over the internet, but it doesn't really actually mean that. Anyway, let's talk about the last thing I've got on my list, which is Coulthard saying the Monaco GP was rubbish. Now, I'm not sure where he's coming from in this standpoint. It was a bit of a procession at some points, but there were some wonderful overtaking moves, and we certainly saw in GP2 that it is not easy to overtake cleanly, and we saw some wonderful overtakes from Raikkonen and Sutil. Some not so wonderful ones from Perez, but he still got some overtakes done, and other drivers as well, I must note, but I can't remember them off the top of my head, you know, notably doing really good moves. But throughout the field there were some really good overtakes. There was some sloppy driving throughout the field as well in Formula 1, but Monaco, sometimes, you know, a little mistake can make a big accident, so we can't you can't get too angry about that. But you know, overall, I think saying that the Monaco GP was rubbish is a bit of an overstatement. I'm not sure where David Coulthard is coming from in this thing, but everyone is entitled to their opinion, and you got to respect that. So that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I've just talked about some of the main points that I've sort of not realised from this year, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. So yeah, it's been Alex, and I'm out here. Goodbye.